I am in the heads right now, and not to worry, I'm not going to show the things you don't want to see. But the reason I'm here is that our boat is equipped with a wastewater tank. When we bought the boat, we had a survey, and with the survey it turns out that there were some wet spots on deck. One of the wet spots was around the wastewater outlet, so it's not a really serious thing, but it is something that has to be dealt with. The reason why I'm in the heads is because behind me there's a locker. In this locker we have the hose which is connected from the wastewater outlet to the wastewater tank. And if you look at the hose, you see some small drain marks. So it's obvious it is something that has to be dealt with. Now if we open the cupboard, we'll see two white hoses. We have a smaller hose, which is the air exhaust from the wastewater tank. And we have a larger white hose, which is the actual connection between the wastewater outlet and the wastewater tank. If you look closely, you see some brown marks, which is essentially the balsa core, which is rotten away around the wastewater outlet. When water gets in, it gets mixed with the balsa core, and it shows up as the brown marks on the hose. Here we see how it looks from the outside. We see the cover from the wastewater outlet. If we open it up, we see the actual outlet. We see the screws. I'm going to remove those screws, remove the hose clamp and the hose to see what is underneath. As with most things on the boat, you are working in a cramped space, and it's not always easy to remove those hose clamps. In this case, I'm actually a bit lucky because it's coming undone quite easy. Now to see if I can remove the hose. It's a very stubborn hose, but it's also coming loose quite easily. So now it's time to get those screws out. They are brass screws and they tend to break over time, so hopefully these will come undone in a good manner. But they won't. It looks like they are all broken, so I'm going for plan B. Well, it looks like plan B is working. Plan B in this case is taking a large screwdriver and wiggle it around, and we see that the outlet is moving. It was completely loose in deck because the screws didn't hold it, and since I can wiggle its way out, it doesn't seem that it's properly sealed. And it's loose. Absolutely no kind of sealing at all. The deck consists of two layers of glass reinforced polyester. In between we have balsa wood as a core. Balsa wood is a very lightweight wood which is used to remove some of the weight of the deck. It's a good material, but you have to be aware that if you drill a hole in the balsa cord deck, you have to completely seal off the hole to make sure no water is going to enter. If you see here, I can scrape off some of the wood which is in between the deck. It's not completely soaked, but it is wet. So I'm going to make the hole a bit larger, then again seal it off with some epoxy. And then I'm going to drill new holes for the screws to hold the wastewater outlet. Those holes are going to be slightly bigger than the screws I'm going to use, and after drilling I'm going to fill up those holes with epoxy, and once that dries I'm going to drill the holes in the epoxy, thus making sure that no water is going to enter in the balsa core again. Widening the hole is actually quite easy because the wood is quite soft. Just making it slightly larger because it is an old boat and most of the damage is already done, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just remember, if you're making new holes, that you just make sure there's enough material removed to avoid future problems. It's April, it's a very nice day. The air is quite dry, so I thought I just let the wood dry for some time, see how it is later on the day, and if it's not dry enough to my likings, I just seal off the hole with some duct tape and continue tomorrow. Since I had some time left, I decided to remove the baby stay. I checked the balsa core, which was in very good condition, so without any further work I could reinstall it. Before that I cleaned everything up with some acetone, and to make sure everything was watertight I used some marine adhesive sealer. Before filling up the new enlarged screw holes for the wastewater outlet, I want to remove some of the balsa core between the both layers of the deck without the need to drill a very large hole in the upper deck. To do this, I'm going to cut down a small piece of this hex key, insert it into my cordless drill so I can use this as a reamer for the balsa core. First thing I'm going to do is drill some pilot holes. They don't have to be very precise at the moment because the new holes will be so much larger. I always have enough clearance to drill the final holes. Once these holes are drilled, they're going to be drilled again a bit larger. I'm using a drill made for wood. First I'm going to drill in reverse just to break the upper layer of the deck. Now to insert the just made tool. To find out it absolutely does not work. For the second try I used a hex key with a larger diameter, which worked a lot better. For filling up the newly created cavity, I used some West Systems epoxy, thickened it with some 403 filler. After curing, it was time to file down the excess epoxy, clean everything up and reinstall the wastewater outlets. Again using some marine adhesive sealer. Now it's good to go for another 20 years or so.